Well, this is Reg Hart at the Cineforum in Toronto. I'm going to talk to you about something I discovered by chance. I have a DVD of a documentary, The Cola Conquest, which shows us the rise of Coca-Cola and the various colas from their beginning. And it's a really interesting documentary. But the most interesting moment in it comes when the head spokesman for Coca-Cola is being filmed in a restaurant in France. And he says on camera, "We've not achieved the success in Europe we have achieved in America because in Europe we have yet to fracture the family." I went, holy shit. I mean, he's either brazen enough or stupid enough to make a comment like that on the public record. And luckily, the documentary filmmakers put it in their documentary. And in that moment, I realized that the destruction of the family, which we have been witnessing for decades, is a deliberate thing. It's a goal of commerce. The father, historically, is the foundation of the family. Father and the mother. And the father goes out and braves the storm, does what he has to do to put food on the table. And the mother takes care of inside the house. And she's the most important person because she's the doorway through which life enters the world. And she's the doorway through which life enters into the world. And she's the gardener that looks after the garden and makes sure that does her best that everything is done so that it is good. Now, if you look at any sitcom on TV, the son might be a genius, but the father can't use a screwdriver. The whole point of the early 50s TV show Father Knows Best was that father didn't know best. And we've had an emasculation of the male in our popular culture that is heinous. It's no wonder young men don't want to grow up, because when they grow up, they become idiots. Now, that, of course, that's not true. But the popular misconception is that they do. I put that little clip up on the web, so I'm going to link it to this video. I want you to think about this. We've not achieved the success in Europe we've achieved in America because in Europe we have yet to fracture the family. Now, it was at one time that a young man did not leave home until he got married. And that was so that the money stayed in the family. One day I was out posting flyers for my program, and it was on a Friday night, and a river of people were going by on the street, and I stopped and bought a hot dog from a young fella, and he said to me, "These people are all crazy." I said, "Yes, they are, but what makes you say that?" He said, "Well, my money goes to my mother and father, and when I get married, they'll help me buy a house. They're pissing away their money." I said, "You must be a Muslim." He said, "How can you tell?" I said, "Well, in Judaism and Christianity, the family is pretty much shattered, except for Orthodox Judaism and Orthodox Christianity, which you're in the minority. but in general, the family is shattered. And that's true. You know, if you don't leave home by the time you're 18, they think there's something seriously wrong with you. And there isn't. There isn't anything wrong with you if you're still living with your parents. There's no reason on earth why you should leave home until you get married, if you choose to get married. And certainly there's every reason why you shouldn't, because that makes the family strong. So you got to turn this around, and it's not going to be an easy thing to do because, generally speaking, our whole culture is dancing to the tune of the drummer that's beating the drum. My dad worked construction. He started out as an engineer on the CPR, Canadian Pacific Railroad, and he got laid off when they had a massive layoff of engineers. He had a bunch of us to feed and no time to go back to school, and he became a pipe fitter by accident. That's a different story. But he raised 8 kids. And he was out all across the country working up where only the native people, the indigenous people go, because that's where the money is. And he's up there freezing his ass off, working construction. Now, we never for a moment thought of that. And we never for a moment thought to say thank you. And when he came home tired and angry. So that's how we saw him most often, tired and angry. Once in a while cheerful, but most often it's not tired and angry. And we had no idea what the source of his anger was. Well, I know what the source of his anger was now. It's an anger that just about every man in the world is starting to feel or has been feeling for a long time. And it's a righteous anger, but you've got to be careful in how that anger is expressed. Because the people that are making us angry want us to express our anger in a way which shows that they're right and we are dangerous. Well, they are as wrong as it gets. You can't get more wrong than they are. So if you're a young man and you're still living with your mom and dad, God bless them. And I don't believe in God. Doesn't matter to me one way or another. Whether they do or whether they don't. Doesn't matter to me whether your parents are Hindus or Buddhists or Christians or Jews or Muslims or whatever. You know, I mean, mom and dad are still mom and dad. And without them we wouldn't be here, and we owe them our lives. We owe them our respect. We owe them our love. And we owe them now and then a thank you. My dad lived with me towards the end of his life for a while. And one day I said to him, you know, we never said thank you to you. No, we never did. But I did that day. I'm grateful for my father. His name was Owen Hart. He was a hell of a strong man. He told me one day that we had our first beer together. He said, I'm sorry I never gave you the things other fathers gave their sons. Well, I had envied all those young fellows I grew up with in high school, whose dads gave them everything they wanted. And my dad gave me nothing but trouble, it seemed. But I went back there one day when I was around 24, 25. This is small town New Brunswick. It was a good place to come from. And I saw those young men whose parents had given them everything. And they had gotten fat and balding, and they were married to women that didn't love them and had kids that didn't love them. And they were crying about how unfair life is. So I said to my dad, you gave me something better. He said, what was that? I said, you gave me the strength to get what I need for myself. You made me self-sufficient. So here we are at Christmas, and all you people are looking for your parents to go into debt to show that they love you. Well, we got rough times coming. They're going to be the roughest times this world will have seen in longer than you and I can remember, I'll tell you that. And it means we're going to have to tighten the belt. We got Mr. Putin over there in Russia doing to Ukraine what should be done to Mr. Putin. He's sent a lot of young Russian people to their graves. And it's going to end badly. And we've got leaders all over the world who are quite ready and eager to send their people out to get slaughtered in the name of whatever cause they can conjure up. And it's just reaching a point where it's going to be monkey madness time. So you just hang tight and put your trust in what generally is called God. Keep the faith. Now here's a book that someone turned me onto. It's called The Black Swan. And it's by a man named Nassim Nicholas Taleb. And it's all about how you can't predict anything and how stress is actually good for us because it causes us to grow. So these times coming up are going to be stressful beyond description. You don't need to buy a copy of The Black Swan, and there's 2 more books in that series of books. But it won't hurt you to get a copy of it. So I recommend you do. I'll put a link to it along with this video. And give your mom and dad a hug, and don't leave home until you get married. Keep your money in the family. Don't go giving it to strangers. Reg Hart, Toronto Cineforum.